Hello, welcome to Black Coal Woodworking. My name is Matt. Today I'm not making a bowl exactly, more like a serving tray for fruit. To get this hunk of pine round, I started by trying to knock out the corners. That turned out to be a bit of a difficult job. I'm using a 1/2-inch spindle gouge. After the corners, I still hadn't got the full length of that log round yet, so I had to address that next. This type of cut really shears the wood extremely cleanly. I get it by putting the bevel against the wood and hitting it with the tip like you see, and just a hair on the top right wing. Cutting it like that really gets a clean cut. This is in real time actually, and I keep going back to pick up the cuts where I feel like I've missed something. That way I can get it fairly straight. I'm actually using just a line of sight to line up the roundness of the log with the lines or the rails on the lathe. There you go, you can see it's a pretty clean cut. It's not quite round entirely yet, but not bad. To prepare the bottom to grab onto it, I'm going to end up using a 4-jaw chuck. So here I'm just using that 1/2-inch spindle gouge to get me a nice flat spot and kind of a tenon that I can grab onto. It can't be too deep, so I have to watch out for that, otherwise the tenon will bottom out on the jaws and that's not good because then I won't be square. Now you might be wondering why I'm taking away large chunks of wood from the side of this thing. And I'm kind of wondering too, because I'm sort of figuring it out as I go. I did mark a spot that I wanted to stop this little thing at, so I'm going up to that point. But I need to get rid of a lot more wood. You can see that I'm lining my bevel up with the wood and using the left wing to take out the bulk in front of it. That works really well. One thing I've learned about using a lathe is always use the bevel. Let the cutting edge of the tool do the work. You don't have to press so hard. As you can see, I'm tapering the bottom of this thing so that it creates a nicer shape. Always using that bevel to poke into the wood and let the tool do the shearing. You get a much cleaner cut that way. A lot less sanding, and that was enough to sell me on the whole concept. Seeing as how this was always going to be a rustic piece, I knew there was going to be some parts I have to address. So I'm doing that with CA glue, putting the glue in the cracks, squirting it, and then the sanding will take care of making sure that it's a nice clean surface. I skipped the sanding here, going straight to the finishing. Hope you don't mind. I sure didn't. Finish itself here is just shellac. I think it's about a 2-pound cut, but how I do this is to rub that into the wood first of all, just to make sure that all the fibers are nicely soaked in with shellac. And then after that, crank up the speed and let the friction polish do its thing. I do typically add more shellac at this process because it's kind of like a French polish. So the lighting isn't great here, but it's actually kind of shiny. And there's actually a half-decent film built up on it at this point. The film is just shellac. It's like a candy coating if you've ever had those candies that melt in your mouth and not in your hand. That's what it is. So yes, this is a food-safe finish. For the inside, I'm using a 1/2-inch bowl gouge. I usually start around the rim, in this case, just because I want to kind of establish the rim, but it's a little thicker than I would normally like. And that's on purpose. You'll see why. Because I have the tailstock up there, I don't have access with my tool handle to make that outer rim very straight. That's okay at the moment. I just need to get the bulk of the wood out. And once I've done that, I flip over to a flat scraper. This is like a 1-inch scraper. And I just literally poke that sucker in there. I am about level with the center of the bowl, in case you're wondering about the height. Don't take off more than it can chew, because if you do, well, you might get a catch and you might wear your bowl or whatever. Not something I want to do. Another nice thing about this tool is you can really get a nice flat surface on that bowl. You'll see me switch back and forth between the 1/2-inch bowl gouge and the flat scraper, and that's because I just still need to work out getting rid of a whole bunch of that bulk, and it just works better to go back and forth between the two. It's really about giving access. Using one tool, you give access to the other tool to get down deeper. Getting rid of this thing in the middle is always the scariest part for me. I think that's because a few times I've been a little too aggressive on pushing too hard, and then the whole bowl ends up ricocheting around the shop. Not so much fun. So I did start with a 1/2-inch bowl gouge to get rid of that, and then ended up finding out that that flat scraper was so much easier. Once I was at the very bottom like this, I switched back to the 1/2-inch bowl gouge because then there's way less chance of a catch now, and it's just faster to get rid of that material that way. Cleaning up the inner side for the last time is always so much fun because I actually switched back to the 1/2-inch spindle gouge. That type of point just really helps get an extremely fine type of cut. The sanding is reduced by quite a bit. Again, I didn't show that part here. In the inside, I'm adding the same finish as the outside, and that is just a 2-pound cut of shellac. I usually opt for something like a 2-pound cut because it actually soaks a bit deeper into the wood, strengthening the fibers, especially on a piece like this where it is more rustic. And voila, here's the final piece. Thanks for watching again. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, shoot me a comment, and if I earned it, please consider subscribing. Catch you guys next time.